One of the common vocabulary words that many Catholics use, I'm sure, when talking about Jesus is the word miracle. It's interesting that in the Gospel of St. John, that word does not occur. John prefers to use the word translated in English to mean sign. He never calls them miracles, he calls them signs. Now, why would he do that? Well, because for John, all the miracles Jesus worked were like signs that we see on the road that point to other things, to tell us things. So a good example of this is Jesus is changing water into wine, which is a miracle, of course, but it's also a sign. Now, how might it be a sign? Well, think of this. Jesus changed 180 gallons of water to wine. Now, no wedding reception in the world needs all that wine, I'm telling you. I hope not, anyway. One writer suggests that this would be the equivalent of about 1,000 bottles of wine already added to what people had been drinking before. And it was an exquisite vintage. I mean, the head waiter had no idea as to where the wine came from. He made the comment that this is the better stuff that people had been drinking. So what does that mean as far as it being a sign, 1,000 bottles of wine or whatever it was? Well, one word that comes to mind in many commentaries on this passage, and perhaps some of you are thinking of it right now, is the word abundance. That Jesus' ministry would bring with it an abundance of blessings for people of all times, even today. And let's face it, there are numerous things we can say about this, and I'll say some of them. One example is the woman who, when she was in college, led kind of a wild life, and she ended up becoming pregnant out of wedlock a couple of times. She went to the abortion list twice. Well, she suffered what many people do, take innocent human life. They become damaged. The doctors use the term post-traumatic stress syndrome. And she opened her heart up to God. She turned to Jesus. She was Catholic. She went to confession. After recognizing what she had done, she felt this terrible pain, which actually turned out to have been a good thing, and saw what only Jesus can give, which is reconciliation and interior peace. Well, not only was this a blessing for her, but it turned out to have become a blessing for many women, because this particular woman works with women who have, in fact, damaged themselves as well as hurting other people through what they've done regarding taking innocent human life. This particular woman is now very pro-life. It's all because of what Jesus was bringing to her. When Jesus appeared to St. Margaret and Mary in 1627 in a convent in France, St. Margaret was in prayer, and he showed her his heart. This is the beginning, one of the beginnings of the Sacred Heart, the statue right here. But Jesus made a number of promises, and he said that he would console people in their afflictions who were dedicated to him under the title of the Sacred Heart. So all of us are afflicted, at least from time to time. Jesus' blessing is consolation. We need to be consoled. He can do it in a way that few other people can do it because he helps us on the inside. Another thing is that he said that he would establish peace in the homes of people who honored him under the title of the Sacred Heart. So peace is another aspect of many blessings that the Messiah brings. Peace. But it's a peace that is the best kind of peace because it touches people at a deep level. I remember one time giving a retreat for women, and I asked the question, and I didn't make up the question, but I found it. I thought it was an excellent question. I've asked it throughout the years. Many people don't understand it. They think maybe it's a trick, or they don't quite understand what the question means. The question is this. This is purely theoretical, but if you were to stop believing in Jesus, let's say tomorrow, and I'm not suggesting that anyone would do that, if that were the case, what decision would you make that would reflect the fact that you no longer believe in Jesus? Apart from the obvious one, I would no longer go to Mass. Well, that's pretty obvious. What else? And mind you, we're still wanting to be honest people and keep the Ten Commandments. I mean, the good Jews keep the Ten Commandments. They don't believe in Jesus. So we're keeping the commandments, honest citizens, but we don't believe in Jesus anymore. So what decision would we make that would reflect our lack of faith in him? Well, everybody can come up with a different answer to this one. There's no right answer. There are many possible answers, but one woman said, Father, I think I would make a decision to start getting counseling. Now, why would anybody need counseling? The answer would be, perhaps, because Jesus said some things, such as we must forgive other people. If we don't forgive other people, we don't experience his blessings. We don't experience wholeness because our heart is embittered. There are so many things. Bishop Sheen used to say that when the line to the confessional grows shorter, the line to the psychiatrist's couch grows longer. Maybe today we would say the line to the psychotherapist's couch grows longer. I believe that to be true. Jesus gives us abundant blessings on all levels. Marriage. Cana was a marriage banquet. Jesus blessed marriage. Now, one study indicates this. Think about this. The divorce rate is about 50%. That's 50. 1 out of 2. According to one study out of Chicago, when people are married in church and continue to go to church, the divorce rate drops to 1 out of 50. That's better than 1 out of 2. And then, if they can not only continue to go to church regularly, but pray at home, divorce rate drops down to 1 out of 1,200. What's the difference? Well, when Jesus is in the marriage, people receive blessings. It doesn't mean they don't have any problems, but they have the benefit of what he will provide. The unnamed couple at Cana had Jesus and Mary at their wedding. Why? Because they invited him. We need to invite Jesus into all aspects of life, including married life. Another blessing is the Mass. Now, there was a very famous Franciscan priest, Capuchin, named Padre Pio. Watched the film called 50 Years of Thorns and Roses, actual footage of him. He died in 1967. He had the wounds of Jesus on his body for 50 years, 50. Most of his priesthood. Padre Pio said that a day without the Mass would be like a day without the sun, meaning a cataclysm, a disaster. At every moment of the day, somewhere in the world, a Mass is being offered. The Mass is the greatest repository and source of blessings the world has ever known. because it makes present Jesus' sacrifice in an unbloody way. The same Jesus who offered himself on Calvary. Many, many blessings come from the Mass. We should think about this. Many Catholic people don't understand it. They think Mass is just an obligation, and sometimes a rather dull obligation to fulfill, with no real understanding of what they're doing. It's sort of like a man with $1 million in the bank who doesn't even know what he has. You know, we have far more than $1 million, I can tell you. Another great blessing is our Blessed Mother. Some people say, well, you know, we can go directly to God. We don't really need her. The church isn't saying we can't go directly to God. I've never read anything to that effect anywhere. But note that at Cana, the reason Jesus performed the miracle or the sign was because his mother asked him to do something. And the reason she said something was because the couple went to her and said, or someone went to her and said they had no more wine. We shouldn't discount her. She's a great blessing. She's our mother in the order of grace. We should recognize her that way. And don't take her for granted. Certainly, the resurrection is a great blessing. I mean, we're all going to die. The resurrection of Jesus is the principle and source of the future resurrection of the faithful Christian. I remember a poll that took place a few years ago by the Gallup Organization on Catholic Practices and Attitudes. 16% of the Catholic people, or people who claim to be Catholic, said that the resurrection was not important to them at all, or only somewhat important. I believe that the 16% is a low figure. There are many people who don't really embrace the blessing of resurrection, which explains, I suppose, why most Catholics don't practice their faith. 2/3 at least are absent on a regular basis. They really understood Jesus offers something that no one else can offer or can deliver upon. Victory over corruption and death, our churches would be filled. In fact, people will be saints. It will be a different world. Sometimes the Lord is blamed for all the evils in the world. Let me tell you, evils in the world are a sign of godlessness, not a sign of the fact that God is letting us down. It's people like ourselves, who don't know the blessings that Jesus offers. St. Thomas More said, the times are never so bad that good people can't live in them. We can be good, solid, practicing, holy people in worse of times. We can shed a light on a dark world. We can be blessings for other people. And isn't this what we're called to be? But we can't be blessings for other people if we don't embrace the blessings that Jesus offers us and make them operative in the way we live and rely on Him, trust Him, love Him.